That is a story. Depending on where you are on your journey, you may or may not have heard of the spiritual ego. Now, for those of you that have never heard of the spiritual ego, it is basically an arrogant, know-it-all ego. It's basically how it can be summed up. The ego is everything that you believe, everything that you love or like, anything that you identify with, such as your name, your gender, your story, your past. All of that can be summed up as the ego. I think Eckhart Tolle said it best when he said that the ego may be clever, but it is not intelligent. Clever people know the tricks of the trade, yet they always forget to seal up every hole in their plan. They may leave at least one open so that they can get caught. And that's the game that the ego plays. So if you think that you are a crappy person, you hate your life, and you may be pretty negative or complain a lot, the ego sees that, takes it, and develops it. It'll start to throw in random thoughts and convince you that that is who you are. And that is how you live your life. And this is worth complaining about. And it'll go on and on. If you think that you're a positive person and that positive vibes only and everything's grand and your life is on the right track and etc., etc., the ego will do the same to that. It will convince you that everything's great. It'll change your perspective to see things that way. So the ego does the same when it comes to spirituality. You see, you dive into spirituality and you start meditating every day and you start reading all these different books and putting them a part of your life, and you start seeing the world differently and more beautiful and more aware, and you start dropping off different stories and beliefs of yourself, and then you start to see the story and beliefs that other people are still attached to, and you think that you're better. Not all the time, but you see them as not awake or not realized. And that is the ego grabbing onto the story of spirituality and developing onto it. So the ego does this, and we think, and it convinces us that we are spiritually awake, that we don't judge people, we accept and love everybody, I'm a meditator, I don't believe in this anymore, everybody deserves love, equality, etc., etc. The list goes on. But it's often a trap because, again, the ego is clever, but it is not intelligent. So it will leave a hole open in its plan to take over your story, and that hole gives the universe, God, source, whoever, whatever you believe, to come in and show you that you're still living in a story. That's how I usually can tell that I'm being too much in my head. I'm getting along with so many people, I'm connecting on a different level with everybody, they're really learning from me, and they're taking my advice, and they're understanding where I'm coming from, they want to join me for meditations, all of these different things start to play out, and I'm like, well, I must be doing something right. I'm getting that validation that maybe I'm doing something right. But this can all be just a spiritual ego. Now, you will be able to tell the difference when you go through the phase, but usually we may get stuck in that phase of spiritual ego, and the universe comes in and says no. Now, whether you pay attention or not is up to you. It's your choice. But the universe will always come in and say no. You may get somebody, maybe a customer or a family member or a friend that'll be frustrated and annoyed by you. Stop talking about it. No. They'll, maybe your situation just doesn't go the way that you expected it to. You're running around in circles. And I'm not saying that if you awaken or when you're above the spiritual ego that your life is perfect. No, that's not what I'm saying. But when you are stuck in that spiritual ego phase and the universe comes and it throws somebody at you or an event or some sort of situation at you to shake you up, you will know by how you react. If you continue to have that initial reaction of frustration, anger, upset, and it stays held within, then you are just living and believing that you were this spiritual person. You were just brightening up your room when it still has its dark spots that you have to go in and you have to clean out. But some of us get stuck and we just see all this light and we think that we've got it. But the universe will come in. So anytime that I usually am encountered by a frustrated person or an annoyed person that's annoyed and frustrated with me, one, I don't take it personally. But two, I realize that this person was sent, or this frustrating moment was sent to wake me up, to shake me up, to get me out of my head. I usually realize it after the situation may have blown over, where, that person was frustrated, I back off, and then, the initial reaction flies away, but I reanalyze it, and I say, well, that was there because I must have been in my head a little bit too much, and I can often see where I got caught, where I thought, everyone's just gonna respond to me with love and acceptance, and that is a story. You will always get people and situations and events that will be frustrating and uncomfortable, even as an awake and realized person. But the most important times, because then you can play with it as a joke. You see it as fun, the universe is just poking fun at you, whatever, and then it's like a joke and you just enjoy it. But then there's a time that it's doing it for a teaching moment. It's doing it so that you can see that you may be in your own head. You may think that you're this, that, and the third, and you're not. You have to come to that realization. So when people respond to me in that way, that is what I take into account. It's like, oh, whoa. This person is responding this way. I'm not going to react. I won't take it personally. I feel like I've gotten to a point where I know it's not personal, but it's a lesson. So I'm going to learn from it. I'm going to take that, learn from it, but I'm not going to attach to the reaction that I'm having. If I have no reaction, that's even great. Then I can truly learn that it's just like, hey, wake up. It's saying, hey, don't get ahead of yourself. Don't be egotistical. Don't think that you've got it all down. And it pertains to anything in your life. It doesn't have to be, just spirituality, that I've gotten spirituality down. It can be anything. Life will come in and it will show you, whoa. Take a step back. Everything looks great. I'm not saying you can't have a fully happy life, but sometimes we get too much in our heads about it. That all of this is going on, and it's great and it's grand, but my ego's up here because it's great and it's grand. So I'm thinking I'm doing everything right, and then the universe will come and slap you down. Watch yourself. That's what it says. Don't get too caught up. Pay attention. Be aware. Watch yourself. The light looks great. It's shining. But you still have some dark corners you may want to work on. If not, that's up to you. But I will keep throwing that lesson in until you're ready to work on it. The ego is clever. It is not intelligent. So watch out for the holes. If the holes come and the universe is showing you something, pay attention. Bring awareness to it. Learn. It's not there to just mess with you and hurt your feelings and, make you feel like a crappy person. It's there for a lesson. Take it into account. Don't get too caught up in your head. We all live in this little bubble of us. Me and I am important. That's it. And life will throw at you what you need to pop that bubble of me and I so that you can finally look out and see the world. It's not about you. It's about us. Everyone. Love, compassion, peace. Pop the bubble.